Hi, welcome to my video, The United States and Federalism. The object of this video is to explore what type of government we in the United States have, in particular the federal system. If you ask most people what type of government we have, you will probably get a lot of people say that we are a democracy, which of course is not true. A better answer is that we in the United States have a Republican or a republic, meaning that we elect people to represent us in government. But the question of how the central United States government relates to the states and you and I is subject of federalism, and that is a federal system. And so the purpose of this video is to explore what that means. So go back to the 1600s, when England was setting up colonies here in the United States, or in America. From the very beginning, these 13 colonies that developed really saw themselves as being very much independent from each other. They have their own independent world charters, they have their own governors, legislatures, militia, laws, and so on. And they really saw themselves as being independent from each other. To be sure, they were all part of the British world. They all had the king as their sovereign, but as far as the relation to each other, they were their own thing. Being a citizen of Virginia was very much different than being a citizen of Pennsylvania or some other colony. Now move to 1776, with the situation deteriorating as it did between America and England. These 13 colonies decide that it's time to exit, to declare their independence and become independent states. And that's where we, of course, get the Declaration of Independence. So let's kind of look at what the states meant by declaring their independence. So Jefferson writing the Declaration, he goes through a lot of the whys and what fors of the separation, and then at the end we get the kind of the punchline, what the states are really saying. It reads, "We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. That as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all acts and things which independent states may of right do." So there you have it. The 13 colonies are saying we are now free and independent states, plural, not state as in the United States, free and independent states. And if you look at the powers that these newly independent states have retained for themselves, it's quite an impressive list. Levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce. You look at those lists of rights that they have taken back to themselves, and that sounds like you would get for any other country. Any other country on the face of the planet has those exact same rights. So 13 states, same as other countries. Is Maryland now to be an independent nation, same as France? Or Pennsylvania, the same as China? Well, yes, that's what the independence was saying. When we talk about the Declaration of Independence, we of course talk about saying we are going to be free from England. We're going to kick out England and we are our own people, which is certainly true. But what gets missed out is that each individual colony was declaring itself a new and independent state, really an independent nation, really. Free from England, and for that matter, free from each other. Pennsylvania was now free to do whatever a nation does, independent of what Georgia may say. So, that being the case, where did the word united in the phrase United States come in? How were they united? Well, first off, the reason that they were united was because they faced a common enemy, that is England. England was not about to just simply honor and respect the Declaration of Independence. There was a war going on just for that very purpose. So the colonies, now states, could wage a war with England on their own. So Virginia could do its own little war with England. Maryland, Georgia, South Carolina, they could all wage their own war with England, which is not really a good idea. That especially would be true for Little Rhode Island. They had to be united together in some form to provide a united front for the war effort. As Benjamin Franklin, as is usually the case, very wisely put it, we must indeed all hang together, almost assuredly we shall all hang separately. The states can either hang together in a union, or they could hang piecemeal one at a time, be cut apart separately from England, take your pick. So there was a need for these new states to have a union, to work together in some form, if no other reason than just to win the war. So what manner of union was this? Well, at first you had the Continental Congress. Later on, as the war progressed, we get the Articles of Confederation, creating what was called the Congress of the Confederation, which was to serve as the body representing the different states in this new union. And it had problems. It was pretty weak. And that was because the states did not want to give up their own sovereignty. Well, who can really blame them? They wanted to retain complete sovereignty, which means that the new confederation really didn't have any teeth. It couldn't impose itself on any state. It could ask certain states to a certain quota of men and supplies, but it was up to the states to decide whether they want to or not. So it was really very ineffective. An example of this goes during the war. And in particular, the issue of supplying the army. So the Continental Congress, then the Congress of the Confederation, neither one that had any power to impose taxes or to raise funds. And so Washington had a very difficult time getting money to pay his soldiers, to provide food, clothing, ammunition. It wasn't that America was poor or that there was a famine or some problem as the Americans that prevented there from being supplies. There was plenty, but the structure, being what it was on the Continental Army, was simply such that it did not effectively allow things to happen as effectively as they should. Somehow, the war was won, but the weaknesses were really becoming quite apparent. After the war, things didn't get a whole lot better. So while there's a war, while all 13 states are facing a united front against a united enemy, it's easy to be united. Okay, now the war is over. The common enemy is gone. What happens next? Well, now you start getting squabbles and conflicts between the various states. Each one has its own franchise to do as it pleases, even though it may cause conflict with its neighbors. There's a quote that really illustrates the situation very well. It actually came from the British foreign minister, I believe, who was asked why he did not send any ambassadors to the United States, which he quipped he didn't know whether he should send one ambassador or 13. Obviously, that's a bit of a snarky reply, but it still illustrates the point that we weren't a united people. We were 13 nations doing their own thing and having conflict with each other. The next problem was the fact that the United States, the Union, had racked up a good deal of debt, particularly with France. and without any instrument to raise money through taxes or anything, how are those debts to be paid off? That was a big problem as well. Amidst all this problem, the foreign powers were seeing the United States on the verge of disintegrating and wanted to make sure that they were in a good position to take advantage of this. France was allied during the war, but afterwards, seeing the situation, they decided that they wanted to be in good position to profit from our disintegration. England as well. According to the treaty, England needed to abandon civil forts that were in the western frontier of America. They did not do so. Again, keeping those in position for American collapse so they could rush in and take advantage of things. In short, there was a disaster pending. Something had to be done. The current setup was just too weak, and something stronger and better had to be done. A more perfect union had to be created. So what was needed was a government that had more teeth, a government that could actually get things done, but at the same time, a government that can respect the sovereign rights of the states. A government that is too strong can overrun, take over the states, and then, of course, by extension, take over the rights of the individuals as well. So, a balancing act was required. On the one hand, the government had to be strong enough to handle their collective needs, such as paying off the debts for the Union. But it had to be restricted so that way it didn't interfere with the states and their sovereignty and their rights. The solution to this balancing act is federalism or a federal system. So what is federalism or a federal system? Well, at least as far as the United States is concerned, you think of the states, the United States as being like a big family. So today there are 50 states. So imagine the United States as being a family of 50 states. Each state with its own individual rights and its own individuality. Remember the Declaration of Independence. Each state, when it declared its independence, said that it is basically free to pursue all actions that any other nation on the face of the planet can do. States have rights. States have individuality. And we have that. That has to be part of the system. But at the same time, a family has family rules and a leadership. Usually it's the parents creating rules for the whole family. That's federalism, at least as it applies to the United States. And this is how we maintain the balance. So we have 50 states, each with their own individual rights, but a federal government taking care of those things that really apply to the family as a whole. Really, it's kind of a contract in a way. The states say, okay, we're going to cede some of our sovereign rights to a federal government. Rights that is important that we as a union take care of and handle, whereas everything else we retain, and as any other nation on the face of the planet, and it'd be like a contract. And that contract will result in a dividing up of tasks. So there are some tasks that it makes sense to have the government handle tasks that serve the whole union as a whole the best. And we'll do a couple of examples in just a minute. But otherwise, it needs to retain to the states. And the states need to maintain their sovereignty and their rights to be able to exercise whatever other issues there are as they see fit. So what rights does the federal government take? Well, ask the Constitution. And there's a couple of examples. One is to coin money for all the states. So in the very beginning of the United States, different states allowed banks within that state to print money. So you had different forms of money all throughout the United States. But you had one coinage, one system of money created by the federal government that is applicable to all the states. That's important for trade and commerce. If I'm to go from one state to another and buy in that other state, I'm going to need money that is good in that other state, as well as my own state. So having a common currency for trade purposes makes a whole lot of sense. And so that's something that the Union can do. The federal government can raise the military of the United States. Again, if the Union of states faces a threat from outside, it makes sense for the Union to come together to provide a united front to face the enemy, just like we did in the War of Independence. Make treaties and interact with other nations. So as far as other nations are concerned, then they don't have to try and send ambassadors to all 50 states. They send one ambassador to the United States, and that ambassador works with the Union to make treaties or whatever other agreements need to be made. And of course, taxes for all the states, as long as those taxes are applicable to all the states and is more or less fair throughout. And so on, you get the idea. Now, because of the federal system, the United States is not, strictly speaking, one nation, because we have 50 sovereign or mostly sovereign states. So are we completely one nation? No, not really. But at the same time, we're hardly 50 individual states doing their own thing. So we're not one or the other. What are we? Well, a good analogy is that of the mythical centaur. So you look at that centaur, and it's clear that the centaur is not completely a man. But it's also true that that centaur is not completely a horse either. It's a hybrid of the two. Well, that's federalism. We are a hybrid of one nation with our federal government and 50 sovereign states, with the rights being divided up according to the Constitution. So the Constitution, as the contract, tells the federal government, okay, these are the rights that the states are going to give to the federal government to do what they need to do. That benefits all of us. Beyond that, keep your hands off. That remains of the states, unless there's an amendment to the Constitution to change the contract. I'll kind of wrap it up just by diagramming what this all would look like. So we have individual states, each with their own rights. They're more or less sovereign, except for those rights which are delegated to the Union or the United States. That Union has its rights delegated to it that serve the collective whole. And the whole Union is under the ultimate lawgiver, which is, of course, Christ the Savior. And our founding generation, our founding fathers, recognized that the ultimate sovereign for the United States is Jesus Christ. That we kick out earthly monarchs, we want nothing to do with them, but God still reigns supreme and is over this union. Alright, so I thank you for watching this video. If you like it, I would appreciate if you would share with your friends so that others may enjoy it as well. God bless you, and God bless the United States.